2:00.
Ding dong. Okay, so welcome everyone to the February 1st Community Recognition Review Advisory Committee meeting. It is now 2 p.m., so I would like to call this meeting to order. So as per procedural notes for today, this meeting is held electronically as per section 19I of our town's procedure bylaw number 6228-19 due to the COVID-19 situation. So the first order of business we have today is to appoint the chair and vice chair for this year of the year 2021 of our Community Recognition Review Advisory Committee meeting. So that being said, I would like to firstly look to the committee for a nomination for appointment of the chair. Do we have any nominations for that? Yes, Diane.
May I nominate Aaron and Brian again this year?
Sure. So let's do them separately. So the
Okay.
chair first. And then the
You don't want to turn, Diane?
No.
I was going to phone you, but I thought I better not.
All right. So do I have a seconder then to have Aaron chair?
I second.
All right. Okay, then any
Elaine
other?
Martini.
All right, perfect. Great. So all those in favor? Opposed? Perfect. That carries. All right. And then a nomination for vice chair. A mover and a seconder for that to nominate Brian.
I will move to nominate Brian as vice chair.
Perfect. And then seconder.
Joanne, I'll second it.
All right. Thanks, Joanne. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Okay, that carries. So over to you, Madam Chair. So you can take on for the meeting.
Well, first, I should just say thank you very much for your kind faith in myself and Brian. It's been so fun chairing and vice chairing this committee and getting to know all of you over our past few years together. And what an interesting time we're all in. I'm looking forward to today's meeting and hearing the wisdom of Shelley and her team and how we are going to be making the Community Recognition Awards happen this year. So before we get into all of that, we will have our approval of the agenda. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated by Legislative Services? And that's Brian, moved by Brian North. And may I please have a seconder? And that's seconded by Diane. Are there any questions or comments on the agenda before I call for the vote? Not seeing any. And Joanne, I just want to make sure you jump in anytime because I can't see you. So you yell if you have a comment.
Why I say my name as I do it.
Thank you. Okay, so seeing and hearing that there are no questions or comments on the agenda, I will call for the vote. So all those in favor of approving the agenda? And
Aye,
Joanne? Thank you, Joanne. And there are none opposed, so that carries.
Okay.
Are there any, my favorite word to say, we'll now move to our declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. So are there any declarations of pecuniary interest for today's meeting? I am seeing heads shaking no.
No.
And Joanne?
No, I'm fine. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So there are none. We will continue onward with the receipt of the minutes. And that is from our November 4th, 2019 final meeting. And if, again, everyone should have had those distributed by Legislative Services. Those were available online as well. So just take a moment to open it up if you need to. And then we'll go into the approval. May I have a motion to receive the minutes of November 4th, 2019, please? That's moved by Elaine. May I please have a seconder?
Joanne will second it.
Joanne seconded. Thank you, Joanne. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye, Joanne.
Thank you. The ayes have it. There are none opposed, so that carries. We have no delegations for this afternoon's agenda. So now we move into our matters for consideration. Our roundtable discussion regarding the 2021 awards event, the award categories, and the descriptions. So first, may I please have a mover and a seconder to put this item on the floor for discussion? So Brian has moved and Diane has seconded that. Thank you both. And now, would you like me to read the full bullet point? So that the Community Recognition Review Advisory Committee comments regarding the 2021 awards event, award categories and descriptions be received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. Do you want to jump in there, Shelley, or?
Through you, Erin, the 2020 application form, I believe, was emailed out to everyone. Historically, the categories haven't changed significantly year to year. Last year, we did have the addition of the new award of the Senior Volunteer Award. Normally, we would be launching the nomination process right about this time. So it was important to call a meeting at this point to make sure that you are all comfortable with the categories, whether you're comfortable with the categories as is, and whether any changes are needed. But I do want to preface, if there is a major change which is needed, which is fine, it is a process that will likely go through to council. Not that I want that to sway any discussion at this point, but you've all got that nomination form from last year. If we were to tweak any grammar or any issues like that, we can do that offline per se. But as of right now, the major topic is the categories and what your thoughts might be.
I move that we continue as per last year's. We put a lot of effort into it. I think it worked well. So I move that we just continue with the categories as written from last year.
Thank you, Brian. Joanne, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I was just going to say I would second that if need be, because it seemed to be that we did, as Brian says, we worked really hard on that. So.
And I'm in agreement as well. And I can see that Elaine is nodding her head. Paul's nodding. Diane, we're all nodding. Okay, wonderful. So I think then if there are no other questions or comments for Shelley, then I'll call the vote. So just give it one more minute. If there are any other questions or comments, please make yourself heard. Okay, so again, this is a motion to, I guess, do I have to read out that whole thing again, Shelley?
No, Madam Chair.
Nope.
Oh, you've already put it on the floor. It's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you. Okay, so Brian moved, and that was Joanne who seconded, and all those in favor.
Yes, where is it? Yes.
Thank you. And there are none opposed, so that carries. Okay, so now item 7.2, roundtable discussion regarding the 2021 awards event and event logistics. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion, please? Diane has moved that, thank you. And Paul has seconded that, thank you. And so the item 1, that the Community Recognition Review Advisory Committee comments regarding the 2021 award event logistics be received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. Would staff like to speak to this item? Shelley.
Through you, Madam Chair. I know that we'll be meeting a few more times before this year's ceremony, but there are probably more, but in my opinion, there's 2 key areas of business that I was hoping to get some decisions today. One being the event date for 2021, and one being whether there's any interest in changing the physical actual trophy award We don't keep samples of it, so I can't show you what it is. We have had it for a few years, and that is totally fine. Now is when I have to reserve stock. Even though we don't know what names go on it, I've got to get the stock reserved. But going back to the date, the last couple of years, the date has been in May, and this 2020, the intention was to have it in May, but there was so much uncertainty in the spring in terms of what was happening. So we actually held the event, as you know, completely virtually on Monday, June 15th. If we go back to what we had been doing traditionally up to that point, just for the last couple of business years, we were going with the Monday after Victoria Day, which in this case for 2021 would be Monday, May 31st. So once we have the event date, we're able to do the walk back in terms of the critical path to determine when the nominations will close. And then of course, once we know that, within a couple weeks or so, I'll work through the chair to figure out our date for our selection meeting. So at least it gets into everyone's calendars at this point. So I guess I defer it over to Madam Chair regarding conversation about the date and then the awards. Those are the two time sensitive items. There's a couple other secondary items, but if maybe we could work on those two.
Thank you, Shelley. And before we go there, I would just like to acknowledge and welcome Mr. Mayor Tom Marakis. Thank you for joining us. We know how busy you are, so we appreciate having you here and bringing you up to speed. I have been elected as chair and Brian has been elected as vice chair, or appointed. I don't know the correct term, but we are happy to be here.
Well, thank you, and that's great news. And I got apologize for being late to everyone. I was just on a few calls and I couldn't get out. I was trying to hang up, but unfortunately, elected officials just keep talking. You can't shut them up. So it was very tough to get them off the phone. But I'm here now. I'm yours. I'm here until 3, and then I have another one. So hopefully we can get everything that we need to get done by then. So
thank you.
Madam Chair.
So the first question is with respect to the date. So that would be Monday, May 31st. So I'll open that up to the group. Are there any questions, comments, concerns, ideas? Brian, please go ahead.
By changing the date, is that going to mix it up for future? We always had it on the last Monday of May for many years. By changing it to June, is that going to cause a problem down the road, or maybe not? I'm just putting it out there.
So I think just to clarify, it was in June last year, 2020, because of all the chaos with respect to COVID. So I believe Shelley is asking if we'd like to keep it at our regular date, which would be the Monday following the Victoria Day. So Monday, May 31st.
Okay.
Joanne here.
Yes, go ahead, Joanne.
I just wondered, it doesn't matter to me which date it is particularly, but I think the staff and people very involved in placing all of these things, what would be more convenient for them to have time to do what they have to do? Have it in June or have it the end of May? Can Shelley answer that question?
Shelley, please go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your comments, Joanne. Very sweet of you. However, staff are here to serve, and we are here to serve the event when it makes the most business sense. I know this year, although we are going to be in a year of recovery, I know, or I believe based on history, the May date was chosen so that it wouldn't conflict with certain key events early June, and trying to look at rosters in terms of what's happening out there so there isn't conflict. I think that'll be too hard to determine this year, because even other alike organizations such as like the Chamber, we're all going business cycle, business quarter by business quarter as we go into our recovery phase. So the only caution I would want to give to the committee is if this was happening on the same day as, let's say, a major golf tournament or something else within the community. However, we don't have that information. So technically we do have a clean slate, but staff are here to work and to serve. So the event will be delivered when it is expected to be delivered.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Shelley. And I think I would just add that from the perspective of engaging with students, I would suggest that prior to June would be a better time because after we go into June, they've got graduation and we might lose them with summer holidays. Though again, we don't know what summer holidays will look like, but
Mhm.
I would
That's a
caution
good
going
point.
too far into that summer month period. We've heard from everyone except Diane. Did you have any thoughts on this? No, she's shaking her head.
No, I think if Shelley requests May 31st, we'll go along with her.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think we're all in agreement.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, Ishita, do we need to vote on that particular item or wait until the full conversation is complete?
No, we don't have to vote on that. Anything that the committee decides will be incorporated into the discussion section of the particular item. So the motion will stay the same. We just need to, that will be incorporated in the discussions.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so then part 2 of what Shelley would like us to address is the actual award itself. And if there are any changes or comments and things that we need to note, because she does need to place order for those awards. So again, open to the floor if there are any comments, questions, ideas. Elaine is shaking her head, Paul is shaking his head, Diane shaking her head, trying to catch everyone's heads.
Was there any last year that we didn't have enough? Is there any that you suggest we maybe remove, Shelley, because of having trouble getting people to nominate people for? Or just keep it as is?
Through you, Madam Chair, this part was about the actual physical award. Whereas with the award categories, I think each award category has its own personality because they're all kind of, they're recognizing niche people within the community. And so going back to that first comment, I think each award needs its own niche marketing campaign. Like if you're looking at inclusivity, you promote that a certain way versus good neighbor. So that'll come out with a robust marketing plan, which I did want to make some pretty drastic changes to that this year. But with this particular item is with the actual silver, the actual award, which like I said, we don't own one, to have it. And I know a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago, we brought in a whole bunch of samples and everyone voted on which one they wanted to go with, which we can still plan for that. But with stock now, more so now, just-in-time delivery is that much more important. So it's not that, obviously I don't have the names for who the awards are for. I'm just reserving stock in terms of what we will own to have engraved. So whether you were pleased with that, whether you would want to see options, I just didn't want to make an assumption here.
Thank you, Shelley. We appreciate that. Brian, go ahead.
My suggestion is keep it the way, keep it consistent, and then it gets recognizable from year to year. So if you walk into somebody's office, they know that award came from the town of Aurora. I'd keep it consistent.
Like the Stanley Cup.
Exactly.
Aurora is as famous as the NHL. I love it. Joanne, did you have any comments?
No, I just, do we put out a lot of money for these awards?
Shelley, can you speak to the budget and the cost of the award?
Yes, so 2 questions here. With regards to the actual specific award itself, awards to begin with aren't just a few dollars, and it's due to the low quantity and that each are specialized. I don't have the cost right offhand, but it is between $60 and $80 per award, which is on par. We do keep very close benchmarks with other municipalities. We just did a whole benchmarking conversation with regards to York Region. When it comes to the actual overall event budget, again, I wasn't prepared with those numbers, but it's approximately around, I believe, 3,500, which is extremely lean for this kind of event. But I'm certainly not referencing that it's underfunded. It's just the costs associated with it are just well done, partly because we've got a lot of gift in kind sponsorships with regards to this event, such as the food is The food is sponsored, the print, those type of things. So the event in itself is in a really good position fiscally, but the budget money is reserved there because you can't take for granted the gift in kind sponsorships year round. We're at the stage right now of doing first right of refusals, which is why I kind of need the date all goes hand in hand with that. So overall, it is approximately a $3,500 ceremony, which is a fraction, a tiny fraction of what our neighbors in York Region invest in their like event.
Well, Shelley, Joanne here again. I just, you know me, I'm a great person for getting donations. Is there any way that we have ever had half of it donated by anybody where we could at least put that money back into the you know, whatever we needed for coming up in the future or anything like that? I'm just thinking that there might be a couple of companies out there that might want to donate and have their name put on the program.
Through you, Madam Chair, I will half answer this question and then leave the balance of the half for you. So this question is a very, very interesting question, and I applaud you for raising it. There's a couple elements here. So we do have really healthy gift in kind sponsorship for this event, which is great, and it does certainly help in terms of the bottom line. The other facet in terms of sponsorship is there has to be an equitable balance between the perceived value, the received value, and then the recognition associated with it. This event, which especially with the original committee members have worked so hard to bring it up to a level of prestige, there is, I think, a perspective or a viewpoint. Some of this should be funded by the town because they are the town awards. I think if we didn't have any gift in kind on the table, or it wasn't in this position, that we could softly look into something like that. But if we started looking at certain donations, we have to look at what would be equated with that, because we also need to recognize the generosity of those that would step forward to help out with it. And so the deliverable may not be there, and or we could be giving out more of the deliverable than perceived value. And we also have to be fairly consistent with our overall corporate sponsorship portfolio across the line, because a lot of our sponsors are with multiple events as well. So there's a lot of layers to that. I hope it would give you some comfort that we will still move forward in trying to get all of the print sponsored, as well as all the signage with the in-person up in the Skylight Gallery. And then as well, the food component is a major budgeted piece with this. But with regards to the other expenses, such as the awards and that, there isn't much wiggle room for costing, because those services are almost not at wholesale. There just isn't the margins there. But for the other half of this, I'd want to defer it over to the chair for her to weigh in on her opinion on that.
Thank you, Shelley. That was a really great summary, and I'm aligned with how you feel. And I feel actually very strongly that the town of Aurora does need to retain that ownership, that this is their recognition awards. And I think what you've outlined in terms of what is available for gift in kind sponsorship still helps us keep costs very, very low for an event of this nature. So I'm comfortable staying with where we're at in terms of the food sponsor and the print media sponsor, and as well as the cost of the physical award. Again, open for discussion to the group for other comments or thoughts. I'm not seeing any faces, but oh, Mr. Mayor, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just waiting to see if anyone else wanted to say anything first, but just to hear what everyone's thought. But I fully agree. I think that basically the main sponsor needs to be the town. But I think beyond that, once we get out of COVID, I think that once we get back to an actual physical event, maybe there's an opportunity for us to look at a sponsor that could come in and maybe boost the food element. Maybe, as we've always talked about, creating a more lavish type of event after the ceremony. But I think the ceremony should always be tied to the town, and the town should be the main sponsor for that. Because I think that the last thing any of us would want is it to be the, and I'll use this as an example because I know I would hate to see it, is the Geranium Community Recognition Awards. I don't think that would go over too well. I think it should be Town of Aurora Community Recognition Awards. So that's my 2 cents as well. So thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Joanne, for bringing that up because it is a really great point, and worth all of us having a sense of how sponsorship for this event works. So with all of that said, coming back to the item for discussion, we need to give Shelley some formal direction on if we are okay with the physical award staying the same as in previous years. From the conversation so far, it seems like yes, and I'm seeing some nodding heads, but again, I just want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak to this.
Yes,
Joanne? Yep, go ahead.
So I said yes from Joanne, because you can't see me.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Wonderful. Okay. So Shelley, we approve. Please continue using the award from previous years. Were there any other items you wanted to bring up at this point, Shelley?
We will need to book a meeting. Our next meeting will have to focus more on the minutiae of the logistics, because all events moving forward, and I don't just mean like family-oriented events, I mean the term events broad, is going to take on like 3 prongs where there'll be distance events, in-person events, and there'll be virtual events. And I think there's going to be hybrid combinations between those. So our next meeting, we will have to, at that point, look into what type of hybrid this event will be. I believe the virtual components of it will be continuing. I think there's opportunities to enhance what the virtual experience is going to be. And we are working on some new technologies for that, which is too premature to bring forward at this time. But we will still have to go into the actual minutiae of the event, because even last year when it was done virtually, it couldn't even be done in town hall. And we don't know what things will be like this spring, which is why I would like to plan this event on 3 different tiers. Our not worst case scenario, but the more restricted scenario, this is what the event's going to look like. A medium restricted scenario, this is what it's going to look like. And even a really loosely defined scenario, even though that may not be the case, it's not bad for us to get our brainstorming efforts out there and get some ideas on the table, because even if we don't do it this spring, there might be some really great idea that may take a lot more time, and that we can really aim for a 2022 delivery, because some great ideas take a little time and some great ideas take big times. So I think the next time that we do meet, I think we should invest some time in planning 3 versions of this event, because also we could go into May 31st in the middle version, and we may end up at the more restricted version, and then at least we've already gotten half our work and half our layout done for that case. I found with all modifications made throughout this past year, I don't find any of the time has been wasted for naught, because there's always been a valuable learning, and many of those learnings are going to carry forward, regardless what the recovery strategy looks like. Just like with the virtual components, which the mayor did a fantastic job last year. It'd be very hard to beat that delivery. So it'd be nice that that definitely is part of our core, and then to springboard above that. I know the mayor has always had really good interest in profiling previous citizens of the year, whether it's through photos and that type of thing. Perhaps we've got the time now, and we've got more learnings with how to work in the virtual world, that maybe there'll be more opportunities for greater enhancements this spring.
I think we're all pretty excited, Shelley. We're all nodding. We're ready to have some great discussion. So will you send some options for next meeting dates, or is that something you want us to decide here during the meeting?
So through you, Madam Chair, I'm not sure if I defer this to the clerk's office. I can't really recall the process at this point. I never think getting a meeting date in your books is ever too soon, but I'm not sure if that's process is done at this time.
If I may, through you, Madam Chair. So we can, if there is a potential month or a week that we have in mind, then we can probably, depending on the timelines and the required planning based on the date of the event, then we can look into that month and then to see what's available in it, and we can poll the committee accordingly. So if the committee has a month in mind or a day in mind or a week in mind, then we can perhaps plan accordingly and look at what the schedule is like and poll the committee accordingly.
Okay, that's great. And I would imagine, Shelley, you'd want this sooner rather than later, like kind of early March, given the planning and logistics.
Through you, Madam Chair, just realizing now, the town clerk's office will have to let me know if I'm wrong, but I believe we have the ability to have meetings as a working group. So if that is still part of the process, then I would recommend that we get 1 or 2 working group meetings in and then look to book for a March meeting in case we need certain motions and more of the complexity worked out in that formal format. Am I right?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, that is correct. I believe the committee has worked and had a working group meetings in the past, and then they've reported all together at the formal committee meeting. So you're more than welcome to do that and to discuss when that was appropriate for the committee members who would like to be joining the working group. Great
memory, Shelley. Thank you. As you said, working group, we were all like, oh yes, we've done that before. Okay, wonderful. So Shelley, again, would you like us to decide those working group dates now or offline?
Through you, Madam Chair, entirely up to you, based on the appetite around the table.
Committee, we're all here now. So I would say if everyone could take a minute to look at their calendars, it's probably easier than going back and forth through email.
I agree.
And so we are hoping to book 2 working group meetings in the month of February. So perhaps I should ask first if there are dates and times, days of the week and times that we know do not work at all for people, if you can let us know.
The 15th is Family Day.
The 15th is Family Day. Thank you, Elaine. So we will not meet on Family Day. So we could also do 1 in February and 1 in early March. So this is the first week of February. So we could go 2 weeks, the week of February 15th, but not on the 15th. And then we could meet again in 2 weeks, the first week of March.
I'm just going to point out, I don't know if it affects anybody or their religious beliefs, but the 17th is Ash Wednesday. I don't know if that would affect if anybody want how they proceed with their day.
And it is also the very special virtual Aurora Mayor Town Hall that morning.
Oh,
presented by Magda.
Okay.
It's all right. You don't have to watch it. It's going to be 15 minutes of boredom. Don't worry about it.
Gee, Mass or you? It's a tough call.
So why don't we
Okay.
why don't we look at Thursday, February 18th?
Yeah, I think that
gives
sounds,
time from Family Day and from Ash Wednesday. And I don't know, let me see what I'm fairly open throughout the day. I don't know if anyone has any time preference or conflict. Joanne,
no problem anytime.
I'm home during the day.
you're home? Okay. So what if we, for consistency, keep the meeting time at 2 p.m.? on Thursday, February 18th.
Sure.
Signing
Nodding,
in at 1:45?
signing in at 1:45. Shelley, would you like that or on for 2?
Through you, Madam Chair. I think signing in for 1:45 is probably a better practice in case there are any challenges out there.
Wonderful. Perfect. Okay. And then if we go 2 weeks out, that is Thursday, March the 4th. And again, same time, 2 p.m. with a sign in at 1:45.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And Paul and Diane nodded their heads. Brian, is that okay for you? You're on mute.
Sorry, what was that? The 4th?
March 4th, Thursday, March 4th.
Perfect.
And Joanne,
Okay with me, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Sorry,
Oh,
what
you
time was
muted
it?
yourself.
What
That
time?
Thursday, March 4th at 2 p.m.
March 4th? March 4th at 2 p.m. Should be okay. It looks, it's okay right now. I'll put it to you that way. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's okay right now.
And I believe for a working group, we don't need the full committee. So if you have a conflict, Mr. Mayor, you can pop on or off if that's okay. Okay, wonderful. So we will set those. Shelley, will you send a calendar invitation to everyone? Okay.
Yes.
Great. All right. So was there anything else that you would like to speak to at this point, Shelley?
To you, Madam Chair. I'm really good. I'm really pleased. I've got some direction that I can hit the ground running between now and our first working group meeting. And then at that working group meeting is when we'll really get to get into the weeds and the really the micro details.
Wonderful. And I saw Diane's hand. Please go ahead.
I have a question.
Please.
If a person or an organization was nominated last year, are they eligible to be nominated again this year? I don't know who can answer that. Maybe
Well,
Shelley.
I think we discussed this a while ago, Diane, before this committee. I think they are. The only one that cannot get nominated twice is a Citizen of the Year.
Mhm.
And that's up to the mayor anyway. But I think we did say anybody could win every year if that's the case.
Just asking because I've been asked.
Yeah, no, I think that was the way, was it not, Shelley?
I just clarified.
Yes, yes, it was.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor, please.
Sorry,
Yeah.
thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to add to that, Brian. I agree. I think that's what we talked about. The only thing I would throw in is I think that if you won it the year before, if you're going to win it again the next year, it should be based on what you did the following year, not based on previous years, because you already won it, right? So that's the only thing I think that we would all agree upon, is that unless if you're going to win it again, you should have done something more than what you already won it for.
So set up specific parameters.
I think so. I think, like, from that perspective, I think so. I think there just needs to be an understanding that you can't keep winning it every year for your body of work overall every
Mhm.
year. I think that kind of defeats the purpose of the awards.
And it
But
would,
that's what I would throw in. Yeah.
it would be at the discretion of us judging it anyway. If
No,
we-
absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think that's also, if there's an event where perhaps we have a tie and it's someone who's won it in a previous year versus someone new, perhaps the edge goes to the new person, because we want to be recognizing many and more volunteers and community supporters.
Just to complicate it a bit, because, it's not. What if the name were to change somehow to reflect that it's a new entry, for not a first time award, but I don't know how to put it, that it's not the same person over and over again, but I don't, God, I'm babbling here.
No,
So
Elaine,
that it's
I know
that
what you're
it's a new award. It's an award for a new, different individual every year, and what they've done in that year, not something that's been going on for several years and they keep winning it year after year. Is there a way to change the title or the terminology towards that?
I'll throw it to Shelley, but I do think the only awards that are based on culmination are the service, like length of service awards, like the 30-year awards. Is that
Mhm.
Shelley?
Through you, Madam Chair. So before you get the selection package for the selection day, I have contrasted it back through 5 years of nominations. So if it is someone that has been previously nominated, I compare it back 5 years and look at the different nominations. So that's not the same one exactly coming in, or that the body has drastically changed. So I think I was getting the gist in terms of what you're referring to, but each application is vetted. I don't just collect them, photocopy, and then send them out to you. They're adjudicated and looked a bit more thoroughly through, which is how sometimes they don't end up in the right category and that type of thing. But before it comes to your hands, they have been well read over and compared to previous years when it was themselves.
I was actually referring to the title of the award itself.
Oh, so the titles have remained constant unless the committee opts to change the name of the award. So if the name of the actual award changed, I believe the clerk's office would deem that to be a significant change, and that would go through council. We would still recommend it, but it would go through a bit. And that enables, again, the integrity of the award system, is that it's not changing each year. There's a level of consistency and familiarity with it. Doesn't mean some awards won't change down the road.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Elaine. I think those are great points. And again, things we can think about, and knowing, Shelley, how you pre-vet the packages before we receive them is helpful too.
Yes.
Diane, does that answer your question? Diane is nodding for the record. And are there any other comments at this point or questions?
No.
Seeing and hearing none, I will now call for the vote. So all those in favor? Joanne?
Aye.
Thank you. There are none opposed, so that carries. Okay, we are down to agenda item 8, informational items. We have no informational items, so on to agenda item number 9, which is our adjournment. May I please have a motion to adjourn? Diane, thank you. And a seconder, please. Brian, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, Joanne.
Thank you. And there are none opposed. So that carries. And we will meet virtually by working group on Thursday, February 18th at 2 p.m. And Shelley will send us all the details.
Okay.
You?